I never believed in ghosts or monsters. But that night, driving home alone, I saw something that changed my mind. It was late, way past midnight, and I was coming back from a friend's place. The roads were empty, and the only sound was the low hum of my engine. As I drove, I noticed the streetlights were spaced far apart, leaving large stretches of road in darkness. The further I went, the more isolated I felt. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I told myself it was just my imagination running wild. I rolled down the window, hoping the cool night air would clear my head. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something faintly metallic that made my stomach churn. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the road ahead, but the smell lingered, growing stronger with every passing minute. I switched on the radio, desperate for any sound that wasn't the deafening silence of the night. Static. All I got was static. I sighed, feeling a chill run down my spine despite the warmth of the car. Little did I know the night was about to get a whole lot worse. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white in the darkness. The headlights cut through the thick darkness, illuminating the deserted road ahead. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each thump echoing in the silence of the car. I tried to take a deep breath, tried to calm my racing pulse, but the unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach only intensified. The road stretched out before me, a black ribbon winding its way through the endless cornfields. The headlights barely penetrated the darkness beyond the shoulder, casting eerie, dancing shadows that played tricks on my eyes. I found myself constantly glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something following me. But there was nothing. Just the empty road and the oppressive darkness pressing in from all sides. I had never been so acutely aware of my own vulnerability, of how alone I truly was. The road seemed to stretch on forever, the monotony of the drive fueling my anxiety. I wished I had taken the highway instead of this shortcut. It was always quicker, but tonight it felt like a bad decision. The silence was broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl, each sound making me jump. I tried to distract myself, turning on the radio again, but it was no use. Only static filled the car. I switched it off, the silence somehow more comforting than the eerie white noise. My eyes darted back and forth between the road and the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of movement, any indication that I wasn't alone. The headlights flickered, casting dancing shadows that stretched and contorted, taking on sinister shapes in my exhausted mind. I blinked, trying to clear my vision, and for a moment I thought I saw something in the rearview mirror. A fleeting glimpse of a figure standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding slightly on the asphalt. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. I told myself it was just my nerves, a trick of the light. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I sat there for a moment, my heart still racing, trying to collect myself. Slowly I released the brake and eased the car forward, my eyes glued to the rearview mirror. The road stretched out behind me, empty and silent. I had almost convinced myself that I had imagined the figure when I saw it again. This time there was no mistaking it. A tall, shadowy figure stood at the edge of the headlight's reach, partially obscured by the darkness. It was tall and slender, almost skeletal, and it seemed to sway slightly, as if caught in a gentle breeze. But there was no breeze. Not a breath of air stirred the stillness of the night. I could feel a cold dread creeping up my spine, tightening its icy grip around my chest, making it hard to breathe. I knew I had to get out of there. This was no stray animal, no lost hiker. This was something else, something sinister. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and slowly accelerated, my eyes never leaving the figure in the rearview mirror. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching me, its silence more terrifying than any scream. I could feel its presence, heavy and oppressive, bearing down on me. I wanted to speed away, to put as much distance between us as possible, but something held me back. A morbid curiosity, perhaps, or maybe a primal fear that kept me rooted to my spot. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the figure, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out of there, had to put as much distance between me and that thing as possible. I whipped the steering wheel to the right, taking the next turn without even checking where it led. The car careened down the narrow road, tires spitting gravel as I pushed the engine harder. The headlights bounced wildly, illuminating the trees that lined the road in a dizzying strobe effect. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror, but the figure was gone. Relief washed over me, brief and fleeting, like a warm wave quickly receding into a cold, dark ocean. I knew it wasn't over. It couldn't be that easy. I drove for what felt like hours, the road twisting and turning through the dark countryside. The trees thinned out, giving way to open fields bathed in the pale moonlight. I slowed down, my breath catching in my throat as I noticed something in the distance. There at the edge of the field stood the figure. It was silhouetted against the moonlit sky, its form unmistakable. It hadn't moved from the spot, not really. And yet it was closer, much closer than it should have been. Panic surged through me, cold and sharp. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, the car lurching forward. I didn't dare take my eyes off the figure as I sped away, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. The engine roared as I pushed the car to its limits, the speedometer needle creeping higher. The wind howled outside, a mournful symphony accompanying my desperate flight. But no matter how fast I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was getting closer. I could sense it now, a palpable presence pressing in on me from all sides. The air inside the car grew heavy, thick with a strange metallic scent. The same scent I had smelled earlier, but now it was overpowering, suffocating. My vision blurred, my head swam with dizziness. I fought to stay conscious, to keep my grip on the wheel. I couldn't pass out, not now, not when my life depended on staying awake. Terror lent me a burst of adrenaline. I swerved sharply, avoiding a fallen tree branch by inches. The car skidded dangerously on the loose gravel, but I managed to regain control. I didn't dare slow down, not even for a second. I could see the lights of town in the distance, shimmering like beacons of hope. I steered towards them, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. I just had to make it to town, find somewhere safe, somewhere well lit and crowded. As I drew closer, I risked another glance in the rearview mirror. The figure was gone. The road behind me was empty, bathed in the pale glow of the approaching dawn. The attendant, a sleepy-eyed teenager, looked at me curiously as I stumbled out of the car. I must have looked a sight, hair disheveled, clothes askew, my face pale and streaked with sweat. I mumbled something about needing a break, my voice hoarse from screaming into the night. I went inside, the fluorescent lights blinding after the oppressive darkness of the road. I bought a cup of coffee, the steaming liquid burning my throat, but the warmth was welcome. I sat there for a long time, watching the traffic pass by, the normalcy of it all slowly calming my frayed nerves. The sun rose as I finally pulled out of the gas station, casting long shadows across the road. I glanced back one last time, half expecting to see the figure standing there watching me, but there was nothing. Just the empty road stretching out behind me,